Hi, everybody. Welcome to the July Coffee Chat. We're going to give it just a minute because folks are, joining us, and then we'll get started. While we're gathering, I want to take a quick second to talk about the gleaning census that's in progress now. So the Association of Gleaning Organizations was awarded a grant from the USDA to update our 2020 gleaning census here in 2025. And Sean has set the ambitious goal of talking to 150 of you. And so we're at about 65 now, Sean, give or take. And so we're hoping that all the organizations represented today on the call will take the time to participate. We certainly don't want anybody left out, as this data is going back to the USDA and helps us form a sense of where we are in growing the gleaning movement now in 2025, as opposed to where we were back in 2020. So the steps are fairly simple, is take a look at the gleaning census questions, gather your budget information because we want to know 2022, 2023, and 2024 budgeting information. Then you'll fill out a simple online questionnaire, and then you'll schedule your follow-up interview on our calendaring tool with either Sean or I. It doesn't matter which one. And once you've completed those steps, you're eligible to participate in the SARE-funded measurement program. So that could be earning up to $100 for backyard gleans and $200 for on-farm gleans. So we hope you'll take the time to participate. I will say, I notice we've got a Canadian on the call. Unfortunately, we're not funded for the measurement program in Canada, but we do hope our Canadian members will fill out the census information because that part of the project covers North America, not just the United States. Sean, did you have anything to add?
No, just, encourage all of you to participate in this and in the SARE project. It only works if all of us participate. We'd hate to give the funds back to the federal government at this point. We really would like to see them go to you all. So if you're concerned about participating in SARE or have questions, reach out to Kathy or I. We've been fielding lots of questions and we're happy to field more. So
Yeah, it's pretty exciting to be talking to all of you and learning about your organization. So I hope that you'll get in touch and complete the census. But today we've got three exciting presentations from three very diverse parts of the country talking about different strategies for diversifying your volunteer base. Kara Michelle Silverberg is joining us from Rachel's Table in Western Massachusetts. Ed Seal is joining us from Shout Out to Pacific Northwest from Kitsap Harvest in Washington State. And Kristen Leslie is joining us from Missouri from Eden Gleaning and Gardening Project. So welcome all three of you. We're going to start with Kara's presentation. And thanks everybody for joining the coffee chat today. Over to you, Kara.
All right, so let's do a little share screen. Maybe slideshow.
There we go.
Is it showing it in slideshow? There we go.
Not yet. There we go.
Okay, great. All right. So nice to be here with folks. I'm coming from Rachel's Table of Western Massachusetts. We say from ancient roots, we grow fertile solutions because we are at our base and in our history, a Jewish food rescue and redistribution organization that works across faiths and across cultures to connect people with land, community, and food access. I'll start with an overview of all of the programs we run and then dive a little more specifically into diversity within our gleaning program. We think about the programs that we run, our 4 programs, Rescue, Purchase, Glean, and Grow, as being on a spectrum of crisis response and immediate hunger needs flowing to long-term solutions. And as we our land-based programs, our gleaning and grow programs, really, we think, help us to dig into more of those long-term solutions. Rescue is an important piece of the picture. In our rescue program, we're rescuing food from restaurants, grocery stores, bakeries, places where food is going to end up in landfills. It's high quality food, it's dignified food. It's not a solution to hunger, but a Band-Aid that's important for people who still need a meal today. Our purchase program is the smallest of our programs. In this program, we purchase specific foods throughout the year in larger quantities that our partner agencies are looking for. Sometimes it's specifically culturally relevant foods. It might be turkeys around Thanksgiving. We do a milk distribution each year, a fruit distribution. And we also provide food at certain key points in the Jewish calendar to food insecure households who keep kosher, and are currently looking to expand that into a program that serves households who need halal food as well. Our gleaning program, we've been dramatically growing over the last few years, thanks to a USDA grant that expires this year. And through this program, we're doing all the things that are very familiar to you all. We have what we call a private group gleaning model and the more conventional open community gleaning model. In open community gleans, anyone who wants to can come glean for a donation or for taking food home for themselves or their households. And in our private group gleans, we have different groups come out who have a particular interest and stake in food security education. It might be public health students from a local university. It might be high-level sponsors. It might be high school students in a global service group that come out on a weekly basis for a semester. It might be interfaith gleaning, wide variety of private groups that come out with us. And then we also have a GROW program through which we support agency partners in developing gardens with and for their constituents that really meet those constituents' particular cultural needs. A little bit of our gleaning stats from 2024. The scope of our program, we had 57, 57, is that right? Well, depends how you think about it. 18 private group gleans. Some of them were the same group over and over again, one of those school groups that came out in the fall. So some of our stats say 57 total gleans, but 45 open community gleans. And that open community gleaning program is new for us. We had 4 open community gleans in 2022 and have been growing it since then. We had 16,000 pounds of produce in 2022, and in 2024 we had 50,681 pounds of produce. We're currently working with 17, or last year, 17 farm partners. Already this year, we have at least 2 or 3 new farm partners who've reached out to us or community members have connected us with. And last year, we had 269 different people, individuals come out and glean with us. Many of them ended up coming out every single week. There's kind of a community within the gleaning community. 146 of those gleaners were private group gleaners, and 123 were those open community gleaners. And particularly among the open community gleaners, one of the things that we see, and this starts to speak to some of the diversity within our program of who gleans with us and who's served by gleaning with us. When we surveyed gleaners in 2023, asking about who uses gleaned produce as a supplemental food source, approximately 23%, over 23% of gleaners said that gleaning provides them a supplemental source of healthy, nutritious food. Particularly now as SNAP benefits are decreasing. We expect this number to keep rising. We have a program in which a lot of folks who come out with us utilize this food for themselves, their neighbors, their communities, their housing developments, and really get food deeper into community through bringing it precisely to people who they know need it, and also utilizing it themselves. And 15% of all produce gleaned last year was brought home by gleaners in this way, whether for themselves or to distribute to people they know. Sean was actually the one who pointed out to me about a year or so ago that that trend in our gleaning program is different than a lot of programs. The fact that people who identify as food insecure or are somewhere in that edge where without this, they might not be able to consistently feed their families healthy, nutritious food on a regular basis. That's not necessarily common. So that's one form of diversity that we have in our program. And to a question of what accounts for that, I think it is largely the way we frame what we're doing. We invite people to take food home with them. Some people have that question mark of, am I eligible to do that? Is that really okay for me to take food home with me? And what we say to them is, if you have the means to patronize a farm, please go do it. And even if you take home cucumbers today from this glean that you were at, just go buy that much more produce or make a donation in the amount that you would spend at a farm stand on that produce to that farm. We encourage people, if to decide for themselves. There are no eligibility requirements, and we're not asking questions. We're just inviting people to take advantage of this program and also support farmers in the ways that they can with their labor, with their hearts, with their word of mouth, and with their dollars if they have the means for that. Seems to have frozen and it won't change slides. Oh, there we go. Who gleans? This is a snapshot from our story map that shows where gleaners in 2024 came from. These are all the towns. This doesn't show number of people. It's just number of towns. They're not like weighted dots if more people came from a particular location. And the age distribution of gleaners, this is something that Kathy actually pointed out to me during our census interview, is that our age distribution also is something that is relatively diverse when it comes to the gleaning world. Many organizations, as I understand it, most of the gleaners are retired women, retired middle class or even more well-off women um, who want to volunteer and contribute in community, and that's beautiful and that's wonderful. Um, and in our program, we do have plenty of those folks coming out to glean, and we also, as you can see, have people from a variety of age groups. The 35 to 50-year-olds and the 14 to 22-year-olds, those are particularly high in part because of our private group gleaning model. Also because of, I think, the openness that our open community gleaning program fosters, in which people of any age and any background are really encouraged warmly to participate in whatever way feels appropriate for them. And then a few more snapshots of who else gleans with us. Another aspect of diversity that I think is sweet sometimes is the intergenerational component of who gleans. We do get a bunch of families coming out, grandparents and their grandchildren, babies coming out into the orchard, teenagers. There's kind of this group of the homesteader homeschool crowd, and they tend to come out strong. So yeah, wide range of ages and a lot of intergenerational gleaning. And even when the folks aren't related to each other, because we have such that wide range of gleaners coming out in terms of age, we've had some really nice intergenerational connection happening outside of family groups. Someone talking about how they've never harvested potatoes before, and then someone else telling them stories about how on their grandfather's farm they used to harvest potatoes as a kid, and some sweet moments like that. We also have, this slide was doing funny layout things up here, but we also have educators and professionals come out with us. This particular slide is a snapshot of a group of Jewish educators from a kind of compound. There's a survival center, there's a Jewish day school, and a synagogue that all share a campus. And there's a farm there, Abundance Farm, that works with all three of those institutions or organizations to develop community farming programs, education, and access programs. And so those educators from all from that entire compound came out to glean and explore together how we can keep building out sort of kind of revolutionary curriculum among our own local Jewish community, where gleaning, food access, community care are a central part of what we understand as how to be Jewish in this world, in this time, and in this beautiful place that we live with the blessing of really fertile soil, literally and figuratively. I'll also say we also have other professionals come out. I just had a group of professionals from Behavioral Health Network, a large organization that works with adults with different kinds of mental health challenges. And so we were digging into the intersection of mental health, nutrition, and food access. And some of their recovery coaches were out with us. And I expect that they're going to come out with some of their clients for some gleaning this season. So that's another way of reaching out to different people in the community to just reach kind of a wider cross section of who's here, who might benefit from this, who might enjoy this. Um, yeah, is bringing these professional groups and getting their networks involved. Another group of people who comes out, we have agency clients and staff come out. This was actually a glean with a bunch of folks from our Growing Gardens program. They came out to harvest sweet potatoes, and we've doubled up with different kinds of cooking demos and nutrition classes to support, what do you do with these crops once you harvest them, and how do you store them properly, and bringing in some of those different dimensions of education. Um, so again, another way to just bring a wide cross section of folks with really different life experiences, backgrounds, and ways of being involved in this work as community members, staff members, and also even alumni of some of these programs who then come back through and continue to engage in some way. Some more snapshots of another agency glean that we did. Jewish Family Service of Western Mass. They work with immigrants and refugees from all over the world. And this is a handful of folks who came out with us last year. And sweet potatoes, carrots, and eggplants. And then finally, we have students and youth groups come out. One of our partnerships, there are a handful of private schools in this area, and one of them, Deerfield Academy, we have a group of students come out each fall. They come out weekly to glean with us, and they finish their season prepping food that they glean at one of our partner meal sites. These students come from all over the world, and it's an interesting intersection where here they are for 4 years studying in this kind of semi-rural community, and really digging into some questions around food security in Franklin County specifically. That's the county that the school is in. And what I'm interested about kind of longitudinally is how their experience of coming out with us. And some of these students have been coming out with us for 2 or 3 years now. And they'll do projects in their photojournalism classes, or they take their learning into other places. Um, I have a curiosity about how this impacts them going into the world, what their experience of local agriculture, food access work, and this community experience of working with food together at formative age in their life. Like, how does that impact them going forward? And in the bottom left, this was a glean with students from Amherst College a few years ago. This was put on in partnership with the chaplain's office. It was kind of an interfaith or ecumenical glean where each of the spiritual leaders um, offered a quote or teaching from a particular strand of faith. And that helped to frame a discussion around food security and food equity from faith perspectives. And also, the day was able to dig a bit into, again, this kind of intersections of healing and mental health, and how food is part of that and where faith fits in. So, faith diversity is certainly another place where we have diversity in our program. And I think that's it. I'm happy to answer questions as we get to that, but that's what I've got for you to highlight age, faith, life background, geography.
Thanks, Kara. If anybody has questions for Kara, just shout it out. Sean, if you could field the questions while I tee up the next presentation.
Yeah, you can unmute or um,
So,
if you
so
do
Kara,
have questions.
this is Ed. I have a question. So, with your USDA grant, which I only dream about, how, I mean, were you
These
able to
days,
pay,
we only all dream about it.
right,
these
but
days.
were you able to pay staff with that grant? I mean, and do you
Yes.
have a paid staff for your organization?
Yes.
About how many roughly paid people do you have? I'm just curious.
In the whole organization, we're probably around 6 to 7 full-time equivalents, but only 3 of them are actually full-time.
Okay, yeah, because it looks like you cover a pretty good geographical area there in the whole center part of Massachusetts, going north south.
We do, and we have over 350 active volunteers who
Yeah.
help us distribute. We do not have our own facility. We do not. We have a box truck and a van, but actually in our gleaning program, we don't even have a dedicated vehicle. We do a lot with volunteers.
I had to answer the door, so you might have answered this, and if you did, just say, sorry, I already talked about it, Sean. I'm curious how, it sounds like you're having a lot of these conversations within these groups about a bunch of different social issues. I'm curious, are those pretty spontaneous conversations? Do you have talking points for staff members? How do you prepare your staff to lead those type of conversations? Is I guess the broad question.
What a great question, Sean. So, for the most part, I lead these conversations, and we are actually looking to expand our program staff a little bit such that there are other staff members besides me who could facilitate these programs and lead these conversations. And so, how I prep them and with what materials and with what training, ask me in 8 months and I'll have a different answer for you. But for now, I will say I prep for, I front load the program, right? Like if these BHN professionals are coming out, there's a reason they're coming out. I don't just say yes to everyone who wants to come out for private group glean. What's the reason? What's the work we're going to do together? And so when we're together, we're not only gleaning, we're having a concerted discussion about what that work is and what our next steps together are.
We look
Thank you.
forward to inviting you back in 8 months. I'm going to turn it over to Ed now. So thank you, Kara. So we're going from Western Mass to Pacific Northwest, right outside of Seattle, Washington. Welcome, Ed.
Thanks, Kathy and Sean, and good morning, and I guess good afternoon, everyone. And so I'll start with a shout out to AGO. If it weren't, I can confidently say if it were not for AGO, Kitsap Harvest would not exist as it does today. Because our original founder, Paisley, learned a lot from AGO. And then when we became our own nonprofit, I was one of the original board members, and I didn't know anything about anything for gleaning, and attending the AGO coffee chats and seminars and stuff for about 2 full years, pretty dedicated, allowed us to keep going. So that's a shout out for AGO. If you were thinking about, is this worth your time or good organization? My vote is yes. And then my my talk is going to be in many ways different than Kara's, but I'm going to tell you about Kitsap Harvest experience. And my goal, like everything I attend with AGO, and it's true with Kara's presentation, is hopefully some of what I'll say, it'll be, yep, been there, got that t-shirt. Some will be, yep, we're on the right track. We just have to keep going. There is a light here at the end of this tunnel. And then maybe even if I'm lucky, you'll get I hadn't really thought of approaching it that way. But I know that every time I attend one of these, and Kara, you're no exception, I get something that fits in every one of those categories. So who is Kitsap Harvest? So our roots are in urban fruit tree gleaning. We actually started as a VISTA program in the County Public Health District Department. Then from there, moved to a WSU's Washington State University Extension program. And then right before the pandemic shut the world down, we realized that hey, the Good Samaritan law only applies if it's coming from a nonprofit. So we started forming a nonprofit in 2020, and 2020 incorporated with the state of Washington. In 2022, we got our federal tax ID as a 501c3. So from our perspective, we think we're still pretty young. And then the other thing is we are an all volunteer organization. There's no formal executive director. We have one part-time person who is actually paid for with SNAP education money, but employed by Washington State University that helps, frankly, me with a lot of admin. But everything else that is accomplished, including our 6-member board, we are all volunteers. What we do is the tagline is we collect urban produce and distribute it to low-income senior housing areas, health clinics, youth programs. You can read it on the slide there. So we'll collect it from a variety of sources, which I'll get to, but then we actually distribute it out twice a week, Tuesdays and Thursdays. That's why I'm at the warehouse right now, because today's a distribution day. And we distribute it mainly to senior housing areas where the food is then set up in a farmer's market style for the residents just to come down and take whatever we have been able to collect and donate or been donated to us that they want. So right now I think there's some zucchini and some snap beans and some other stuff in the drop box out there from our Grow Row program. There's some apples and plums in the chill box from a gleaning. And then we also I'll get some rescue from Central Kitsap Food Bank today. So when we glean and we have a big grow row, so during the harvest season, that's when we can really expand out to health clinics, where we'll just have a little produce stand with 2, warming trays that will put some fresh fruit so that people can just come as they're coming to the health clinic. They can just grab an apple or grab a plum, grab some cherries. There's a couple of youth programs, some of the typical ones, Backpack Brigade and, after school feed programs, but then also there's a Coffee Oasis program out here that does a lot with youth. When we have a lot of produce, we'll give to them to do that. Then some recovery centers. We really have 2 goals, and that's to improve access to the fresh produce as well as reducing waste, because here, and we're only here in Kitsap County. Kitsap County, all of the farms are 5 acres or less, so we don't have any formal farm gleans. In fact, I think I've maybe done one in the 5 years, almost 6 years now I've been gleaning with Kitsap Harvest. But we have a lot of fruit trees and a lot of gardeners just in their homes, and that's our focus. And as we tell people, once you put on your fruit goggles as you're driving down the road, you'd be surprised how many apple trees and pear trees and plum trees there are. And I'm a prime example of that. I'm prior military, and I was stationed here 4 times, and I always thought the climate was cold and wet and nothing grew here. And then I retired here and then started gleaning, and I'm like, holy cow, there's fruit everywhere, and going to waste. So those 2 pillars, keep the food from going to in the waste stream, but then also get it out to people who don't have access. All of our distribution sites, originally, so they're what I call the original 16, they all were SNAP eligible residents. So that really is our core. Our 4 sources, we do fruit tree gleaning, and that fruit tree gleaning is, in fact, I'm going to do one tomorrow morning. It's in somebody's front yard, just because they have apple trees there and they're not going to use all the apples, or they're not going to use any of the apples. 2 scenarios there. One is the family has owned the property for a long time, and it's just, hey, we can't pick the produce anymore. We're done literally canning. We don't need to can 32 quarts of apples this year. So please come and pick our apples. And some are brand new homeowners that, hey, we bought this house and I'm pretty sure that's a fruit tree in my front or backyard, but I don't know what kind of fruit it is and I don't know how to use it. So can you come help us by taking the fruit? So, and then we have a Grow Row program, which includes both 2 community gardens that we help with. We provide starts, we provide weeders, and we provide harvesters. And then we have a whole series of we call neighborhood captains that will corral their neighbors into giving extra produce from their gardens. They collect it all and then drop it off here. And our line there is, I don't care if you only have 1 tomato and 1 zucchini. You know, if 10 of you have it, now I have 10 tomatoes and 10 zucchini that I gave out to someone who has 0 because they're living in this, you know, essentially apartment complex built in the late 70s. We do some food bank rescue, and that is what allows us to operate year round. We have a great relationship with 2 of the food banks that give us some extra produce every week. And then we do a grocery store rescue from one of the local grocery stores here, where we'll take their extra produce that they can't sell and move forward from there. We also, I guess the last thing on that is we do have a presence at 2 of our farmers markets. And so farmers at the end of the farmers market have produce that is still good, but their opportunity to sell it now is pretty small. They will donate it to us because we are then able to give them a tax donation receipt that they can use for their business. And in fact, we were the recipient of about 2,600 pounds of apples in March and very early April this year, because a farmer right down the road, who's a good friend of ours, did the math, and it was cheaper and better for his business to donate those apples to us than it was for him to pay the electricity on his chill box. So that's what we do. So the next slide, thanks, Kathy. I'm not going to talk about our volunteer base as much as I'm going to talk about some outreach goals to diversify. For the stats, the Kitsap County has about 277,000 folks, and 73% look just like me. And so it's hard to diversify because I also have learned and believe now that if I can't see myself there, I may not go there. And so because we're all volunteers, we really grow at the rate of our volunteer database. But early on, as a board, there were 2 areas that we wanted to expand in. One was with the Suquamish tribe, which the Native Americans make up about 1% of the population here in Kitsap County. They're all at the northern end. Most of our operations are in the central and south end. It's about 25 miles away, which may not sound like a lot to some people, but you know, when you live in the country, 25 miles, you know, I don't really want to drive that every day. And so, but we felt in our hearts that we wanted to expand there, and we believed that there would be a need there. And so we kind of kept it on our list literally since the 2020, one of the first board meetings, and we were just finally successful last year. And that's going to be the bulk of my talk. We also have another organization called Kitsap Immigration Assistance Center, which is right here in Bremerton, which is where I am right now. They deal with the immigrants that come into Kitsap County, which is about 10% of the population. But it's still on the goal list, and I'll talk about why when we go forward. So go ahead, next slide, please, Kathy. So Suquamish, that's our success story. And it's all about relationships. And I could step back and say, well, you know, everything you learned, Ed, was relationship 101. But it really was, you know, what you learned in relationship 101 is what worked for us. We had it on our list, and we had some fits and starts with some outreach programs going up there, but we didn't have anyone that they knew. We didn't have anyone in our organization that they trusted. And it turns out that because of a WSDA grant, we were able to bring on a part-time employee. And then because of some SNAP funding, we had a part-time employee, and one of those part-time employees had a relationship with the tribe. And through her, as well as her family, so long history there within the tribe. And so we had a trusted person. And then we had the WSDA grant, which gave us some money to specifically help us grow that outreach. Actually, both these programs I'm going to talk about, but grow that outreach. And so in my perspective as board president, it was like, okay, it's a now or never. We've got money. We have we have what we believe to be an inn. And so they pursued it. And even with that, it was probably a January to May series of discussions, starting with their in their health department, and then expanding over to some other admin folks on what does Kitsap Harvest do? You know, what needs do you have, if any? Can we help meet any of those? And then because our model is we distribute it out, and normally when we distribute it, it's gone within an hour there in the community centers. Sometimes some of the volunteers will have to take some and put it in a fridge and put it out the next day, but it's almost always gone. With the Suquamish tribe, we didn't have a community center like that where people naturally gathered. And so we ended up, through talking with them, we said, okay, well, we have to solve the I call it the chill box issue, but how do we keep the produce fresh? And then the other item is, because the tribe is literally 25 miles from where I am now, we do have a box truck. It gets 11 miles to the gallon on a good day. It's a stinky old diesel truck, which I can't talk bad about it because it does run reliably as long as you do the maintenance. But it's that's a real bill to take it up there and then turn around and come back. So we had to talk through the logistics of how the fruit would be preserved and kept, the produce would be, as well as how's it going to get there. So I think we can go to the next slide. So what does it look like today? I talked a little bit about the WSDA grant. With that, we were able to buy a reach-in freezer, so a reach-in chill box. So think what you go to, like the 7-Eleven or something like that, you open up and get a Coke. We got one of those for them, and we worked with them with how big it could be and what did they want it to look like and stuff like that, to make sure that it suited them. We didn't want to ever be observed as just telling me, hey, yeah, we're here and here's what you're going to take from us. And so we worked through that detail. And then the same person who started the relationship, her name is Iyer. She has the funding ran out, so she's no longer being paid, but she stayed on as a volunteer. We made a commitment that every 2 weeks we would have produce available. And she comes down, in her private car and picks it up, takes it back up there. Sometimes it's only like a banana box worth of produce. Sometimes it's like last week, it was 4 banana boxes because we did a bunch of gleans last week of plums and yellow transparent apples. And so it's working. And so we as an organization, if we're allowed to, we feel good because we have met one of our long-term goals, and we are reducing waste and we're improving food access because like the other places, when we first took it up there, it's gone within an hour or two. Sometimes with a chill box, and depending on when it closes, because that's actually in what I might term an on-demand locked space overnight. So it's not available 24/7, but people can come later later, do that there. That has grown now. Our former president, her name is Jenny. She lives up there in Poulsbo, so close to there. She's been approached by someone within the tribe to do some native plant harvesting. And I think that this summer we'll be able to expand with that. Additionally, we have a Grow Row program station up there, and the goal is all the produce grown in what we call the north end of the county will stay up there, which means it will go to the tribal headquarters and further help them out up there, because it turns out there is a need. So if you want to go to the next slide, trying to watch my time here. So Kayak, or Kitsap Immigration Assistance Center, that's still on the goal list. They, as you, everybody probably on this call realizes now, it's not a great time to be an immigrant. And if you're in the business of helping them with legal papers and stuff like that, then what you thought you were doing, in the back of a building, literally the entrance is in the back of a building and the shutters are pulled. It always has been. It's locked all the time. only by appointment. It's not easy to get in there. None of our volunteers are immigrants right now, but we know there's a need. And so we continue to look for opportunities. One of our board members just a month ago had an intern who, when that individual finished their intern at the food bank, they were going to go work at Kayak. And we're hoping maybe that will give us an in with the staff there to help us help them. We do that same WSDA grant. We wrote into there because everybody knows when you write a grant, it's got to have a project and it's got to have goals and objectives. One of those was to establish a relationship with Kayak. And so I am literally staring at right now the still boxed up chill box, which was purchased for the Kayak Cup project. And because I'm a dweeb, I won't let it go anywhere else because it was destined for Kayak. So we got it there. And then because I wanted to have at least one picture, if you go to the next slide, Kathy. So there's our information and my information. There's our Dropbox, which currently has produce in it from our community garden and our box truck. And then I'm inside that building there where we rent for the meager price of $100 a month, a 5,000 square foot warehouse space that we're able to operate in. And thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ed. Are there questions for Ed while we get ready for Kristen? I just want to say I appreciate the intentionality and the persistence that you've shown in identifying these targeted populations and working through, very detailed logistics to make the relationship work for you and for the other parties. That was interesting to hear.
So Sarah has a question that she put in chat. So we don't know the answer to your question. So the question is, are we going to take some impact with the SNAP-Ed? Our fear is that we'll lose the 16-hour-a-week part-time employee that WSU has because they get their money from that. Other than that, actually no, because we live only with private donations. I mean, that's how we fund. Every once in a while, we'll get a grant when we're lucky. And so with USDA saying, no more, okay, it hurts our food banks. I mean, so there will be an impact, but for Kitsap Harvest, because we're from the community, for the community, it's not, other than losing Katie, I don't think it'll impact us.
Sean, are there other questions? I've got my screen share on.
No other questions in the chat. Let's move on, Kristen, and then we can take questions from both of them if we have them at the end, if we have time.
Sounds good. Over to you, Kristen.
Thank you. Let me ask you a question about the timing. We are done right on the hour. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay, so I'll do this quickly. If someone could share my slide deck, that'd be great.
Oh, are you not seeing it?
I am not.
Uh-oh. Let's see.
While Kathy is getting that up, I'll go ahead and start talking then.
Yeah.
I am Kristen Leslie. I am co-director of the Eden Gleaning and Garden Project. Thank you. If you could put it on the slideshow. There you go. The Eden Gleaning and Garden Project is a project that comes out of Eden Theological Seminary in St. Louis. I'm a retired faculty member just after a year. I retired a year ago. We're in our 7th year of the program. We started it right before COVID. And it started because we had a student who came to me in my own professional career. I taught pastoral counseling, but I also taught a course on homelessness and poverty, and work a lot in the community around issues of shelter, getting folks shelter. And so I knew where a lot of the food ministries were related to that. And I had a student approach me and say, from a rural community near us, asking if if they could get some potatoes gleaned, this other youth group was going to go glean. Could I find a place for them to go? I said, sure. Well, they brought 1,000 pounds of potatoes. And that really started the work of finding places for those to go. So you can go ahead and go. So our purpose of our program, our vision is kind of to end hunger, shrink food waste, and connect communities. I heard that in Ed's program too, and in Kara's. I think we're all doing very similar things, attending to food needs, shrinking food waste, and connecting folks to make a difference. Next slide. So we really have two functions on it. One, we have a community garden on our campus, which we provide fresh produce for a number of faith-based food pantries. We always ask them ahead of time, what is it we can grow for them? They're very, we have learned that there's some things that while they might be easy to grow, they're not things that people want to eat. So we're very careful about what we grow so that we can serve what people's needs are. We work to educate the community about urban gardening techniques, and then we partner with the faith communities to help them serve the region. But we're talking here about the gleaning project. So we also do it. We have a gleaning project, which is volunteers to harvest unproduced food. We work with, so we're in St. Louis. We work with a group of farmers in Indiana, and that's 3.5 hours away, and which seems an unreasonable distance to go. And the drive is the worst part of it. Every other part of the program couldn't be more perfect. So we're willing to put up with the drive because everything else is so amazing. But so we connect with farmers in Indiana who work with large farms. So they work with seasonal workers to go in, and as many know, because of the model of farming, they can only afford to go through once and harvest once in a field before they will disc under and move to the next and plant for a second planting. And so we have partnered with them. We have one farming contact in Indiana who kind of knows all the farmers, in fact, is related to a lot of them. It's a very small community and long-term farmers, they know each other. So they're always tracking who has harvested, when might we go in and glean. So we work in that capacity to do that. So we connect with the farmers and the churches and communities to do that. And then because I'm an educator, I retired a year ago from seminary. I teach a lot about food waste and food apartheid and how to get communities to connect. We're mindful that our program is our goal is not to glean the most, because we could go, the farms that we work with are big. We could glean thousands more pounds than what we do. But what we do is we partner with food ministries in the St. Louis region. About 7 of them. And each time we're going to glean, we ask what they want, how much they can move along each week. And and a little bit more is what we bring back. So it's a smaller model because we're very clear we don't have a huge infrastructure between the farmers and the food ministries where we send the food. Next slide. So all of us who are doing the education, we know we have to help people understand why this is important. Where we are in St. Louis, we work both with a rural and an urban community. So part of the work we're doing is trying to educate both the rural and the urban communities, both about farming and about food need. And what is so interesting when we do these kind of the education part, it is our farming communities who are so surprised at the food need there. When we talk to them initially, they say, well, we take care of our own, except for there's so much, the food need in those farming communities is large. So we do a lot of educating for people to understand why this is so important. Next slide. So last year, we did 17 gleaning trips from April to November. We typically will go into December. Because we're out of working at an academic institution, we also have to kind of in some ways be mindful of the academic season. I retired a year ago. I have a little bit more time to do this, but even then, my other colleague who worked with me, we had full-time jobs and we're doing this. Like Kara and Ed, we work all we work all volunteer. We have some small grants that I write. Our program, both the Gleaning and the Garden, is about, our budget is about $10,000 a year. Because we work on our institution's 501c3, an academic institution. They've asked us to not go for any federal grants, which is fine with me. So we work with smaller church-based grants and some other small ones, so we can work within those parameters. So you can see we gleaned about 20,000 pounds last year. We could have gleaned a lot more, but we only gleaned what the food ministry said they could take each week. We don't have refrigeration. We're very clear. Once it comes back, we move it within 2 days into the different places that will take it. The one exception to that is because we're at Eden Seminary. If it's a really hot day, and like today, it is at 97 degrees outside right now with humidity. So in the summer, it is hot. So even if we glean pretty quickly, even if we're not going to distribute it within 2 days, we have to do something with it. So literally, Eden has a kitchen. So we just take over the kitchen and just put stuff in a cool space until we can move it along. But in 2 days, it is all distributed. You can see the price equivalent last year would have cost us over $26,000 to buy the gleaned food that we had. We're a small organization. I work with a colleague, Karen Petmeyer, who's there in the front on the left, and she's actually a hospital chaplain. We run this program together. I know all the food ministries in St. Louis. Karen, who comes from Indiana, knows all the farmers. So we partner together in communicating to get all this stuff done. So we work with about 11 food ministries both in St. Louis and in Indiana, and work with a bunch of partner organizations and churches. We are a Christian seminary. We're a very progressive Christian seminary, and we work with a variety of partners in the area to get the work done. Okay, next slide. So one of the things I wanted to show this slide particularly because we work with a number of food ministries that we will get it to them, and then some of them will cook food, and so we can take some of the food that we glean. They can immediately distribute, like you can see here in this slide. And some of it, we glean things like broccoli and asparagus, which our urban community doesn't know what to do with. And so we have food ministries who literally prepare meals and get those out into the community. Centennial Christian Church was one of those. May 16, the church was destroyed by a tornado. And Pat Pendleton, who was a beloved friend there on the right with a white sweatshirt, was killed in that storm. The church collapsed on her. And so I wanted to at least show this slide in honor of Pat and the amazing ministry that she did at Centennial Christian Church. We're still kind of struggling with, because Centennial Christian Church served a North St. Louis community that was in such, you can get hot dogs and Cheetos at the grocery stores there, but not a lot else. So Pat was one of our partners that we worked with, that she served a huge percentage of the community to get them fresh food. So we are in huge mourning around the loss of Pat Pendleton and the whole food ministry that they did. So we're continuing to find, because she served such a huge region, we're working to, where can that go? Next slide. So much like Kara talked about, we're doing a lot of education with faith communities. And one of the things that we're really clear about is what it means to partner in the mending of creation, both because we're mindful that both food need, food disparity, and what happens when all this stuff all the produce gets disked under, and how it's adding to global warming. We're mindful of that. We're taking all of that into account when we're doing this work. So I regularly teach a seminary course on gleaning, where we literally take folks out gleaning. They're required to do 10 hours. Half of that is in the field, and then some of that is educational stuff, and then the other half is the distribution, so they can get a real hands-on sense of what it means, the parts of this to do the gleaning. So we show the Vermeer the painting, and we talk about the biblical notion of gleaning and the kind of the current stuff. I'm going to be using some of the slides, I hope, from Ed and Kara, some of the great work that you're doing in that. You can move ahead to next slide. So one of the partnering that we do is to make sure that we have folks from the urban community, from rural community, and from international communities who join us. So we can draw on some of our international partners here at the seminary. So in this picture, we both have a Ugandan and a Sri Lankan who are there. And then so we make sure that we bring folks from our particularly we look to the African American churches because we want them to understand what's going on both in their communities and in the farming communities, as well as we do that with the farmers. And we always have that our program is we drive to Indiana, we do some education, we glean in the fields for about 3 hours. We feed them, we have more conversation about what's going on, why they could glean, why they had to glean. We have farmers who also glean with us. We've got an 89-year-old farmer, there's a picture of him later, who he's retired and he comes out and gleans with us all the time. Because he loves to be out there. So we get people to tell stories with each other as part of that partnering, which is really crucial for us. You can go ahead and next slide. This is just a picture of some of the gleaning partners that we have that are there. You can see the age is pretty similar. Because it's in the seminary we teach, we have some post-college, but we mostly have older adults who do that. Next slide. So one of the things that we're very mindful of is because we're looking at the urban and the rural connection, that we do have to do some training on why these urban communities need this produce, why they just can't go into the grocery store and buy it. And so a lot of the training that we do is so they can understand that and why it's important to get the produce into the right hands. Next slide. This is one of the books that we use when we say Farming While Black, because when we get African Americans who are out gleaning with us, we hear lots of stories, both about their own family history, and there can be a reticence to go out into the field where their ancestors were required to do that. So we do some training both for African Americans and for whites and everyone else to help understand what it means, what we're asking of people to do in the fields. And this is a great resource, is Leah Penniman's book to do that. Next slide. This is Bill, 89 years old, who comes and gleans with us all the time. Then the last slide. In our community garden, one of the things that we do, this is a slide from our garden. At the beginning of every season, we plant radishes because they come up so quickly, and we always spell out amen as a way to signal to the groups and to the community that we're starting a new season, and that we're thankful for the resources that we have and the value of bringing people together to do the work. I'm mindful that we're just about time. I could talk forever, but this is the Eden Gleaning and Garden Project that we do.
Thank you so much. Thank all three of you. What beautiful sharing today. Amazingly powerful. That photo of the convenience store in St. Louis really says it all. Yeah, says it all. Any questions for Kristen, Kara, or Ed? Or anything else anyone wants to share?
Thank you all so much for coming and sharing part of your day with us. We hope this was useful information for all of you as you try to figure out how to diversify your own volunteer bases. Please, reach out to us, and if you have any questions or if anything we can help you with. And I was just thinking as Kathy, as this call was going on, that all three of these organizations, we asked them to do this from data we gathered from the census. And so as you participate in the census, we learn more about you, learn more how we can tap into the resources that exist in our community and more about the needs in the community. So please participate in the census if you haven't already. Thank you guys. Have a great day.
Thank you, everyone.